Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslimah. I'm your host, Zara Pedersen. And in today's episode, I'm going to share a little bit about how the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective has changed my life and give you some inspiration as to how it potentially can do the same for you. Just really quickly, I have been a little bit unwell the last couple of days. So if I start coughing or like clearing my throat and stuff like that, please forgive me. But I thought, I really did consider whether or not I should just kind of skip an episode this week. But I decided that I didn't want to. I really want to get this episode out to you guys. And, I just want to, I like it, So I hope you can look past from it if I do any of those things in this episode, but I'll try to keep it to a minimum, of course, because I do also feel a little bit better than I did the last couple of days. So I'm not laying down in bed with the plague or anything. So, inshallah khair. Okay, so let's just go straight into it because I hope it's not going to be too long of an episode, but at the same time, I know myself and I know I can talk for England, for Denmark, for Morocco, for Sicily, for everybody else. So let's just go straight into it. So the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective has changed my life in so many ways. I think it's quite an unexpected thing for me in the way that it has because of the Islamic perspective, because I've been learning about law of attraction from the mainstream perspective and really trying to delve into that world for many, many, many years. And it wasn't until I got sort of that Islamic perspective sort of intertwined in it, I understood that my life actually started to change. So I do believe, feel free to challenge me on this if you want to, but I don't think you will actually. I do believe that law of attraction from an Islamic perspective is far more powerful because it has religion and spirituality from the religious perspective intertwined in it. And that is because it gives a much deeper meaning to everything around us, rather than just the universe or the archangels or whatever, or yourself, you're a goddess, you're a whatever, astaghfirullah. It really brings a whole new level, a whole new depth into the meaning of life, the way that you can live your life, the things that are happening for you, the things that are not happening for you. And I think specifically also that because if you're using law of attraction from a mainstream perspective, it's very much about just getting, simply receiving, but there is no giving. And the only thing that you'd give would be your energy. And in this case, it's no, sometimes when there's a law of attraction from an Islamic perspective, there is also surrendering and letting Allah's, not letting Allah's, but allowing without resistance Allah's will to come into play and still finding gratitude with it. So there's so much more growth in it. There's so much more meaning with it. It becomes more meaningful. It becomes more powerful if you allow it to. So I want to just very quickly to differentiate between those two, because I do think the law of attraction from a mainstream perspective, one of the reasons why it never really fully clicked for me was because it felt like an add-on to my life already. It didn't feel like it intertwined within my life. It felt like something that I had to add on in a way. I know that might sound a little bit crazy or a little bit weird, but that's the way it felt to me. Whereas Islamic or law of attraction from an Islamic perspective, it's not so much like an add-on, it's already in there. So it's not something that I have to remember to do or something that I have to remind myself of. It is already there. So it also becomes that much easier to access all of the information, the knowledge, the energy, the blessings, everything all at once, because it is a lifestyle. Okay. So let me start with the first thing. And I think this is where a lot of people might, I don't want to say that they disagree necessarily. I think this is where people don't understand it, especially after Sheikh Bilal Assad came out with the lecture around law of attraction being shirk. There's definitely more hesitancy around it, and understandably so, as we should be more critical with things in our lives. But I think that the one thing around it is that a lot of people will now see law of attraction as a thing that is shirk, something where we are basically up leveling the status of, for instance, the university angels ourselves, the archangels, whatever. I think I've repeated myself there a couple of times, but those things to the level of Allah, saying that these are the things that are creating something for us, or we are indeed the ones who are creating something for ourselves. And that is absolutely shirk. I cannot agree more with that. However, that is not law of attraction from an Islamic perspective. That is law of attraction from a mainstream perspective. Law of attraction from an Islamic perspective is very much the understanding that we are not in charge of anything. The angels are not in charge of anything. The universe is not in charge of anything. It's Allah every single time. And surrendering to that will of Allah and understanding that without Allah, we can't do anything. In fact, life would be quite miserable without Allah. I mean, we see it everywhere around the world. People who don't have religion, how corrupted they become, how miserable they become, how vain and hollow their life looks, even from the outside. Can't even imagine what it would feel like, that emptiness on the inside when you're actually living that kind of life. Well, I can imagine, because that was me before Islam. So I can understand that this might sound surprising, but it truly enhanced my deen. The law of attraction from an Islamic perspective enhanced my deen. And it did that because it forced me to look at my life, not necessarily as something that I solely was in charge and in control of, which is what the law of attraction from a mainstream perspective does preach and teach, is that you and you alone are in charge and in control, which is kind of a scary perspective to have on your life. I'm going to come for someone who I know in the law of attraction world is quite high up there, but it doesn't mean anything to me, but it might mean something to you. Joe Dispenza, you've probably heard that name if you've been in the law of attraction world for a while. Now, I have nothing against Joe Dispenza's teachings necessarily. He does teach a lot of valuable things, but also a lot of shirk as well. And I also believe some things that are quite harmful. For instance, now I don't know, I can't remember the book, but it was like an audiobook that I was listening to where he was talking about law of attraction. This was before I became Muslim, where he basically stated, that everything that happens to us is because somehow, somewhere, from some angle, we attracted it. And I think the example that he actually used was if you have a car accident, then a part of you actually attracted and manifested that. And I just remember thinking that I had a hard time kind of aligning myself with that, because we're not always attracting everything into our lives. Some of the things are because Allah has decided that for us. And I think that in and of itself is such a huge differentiation between mainstream law of attraction and law of attraction from an Islamic perspective, because we recognize and understand that not everything is something that we have called in, but sometimes it is because Allah needs certain things to happen to us or for us in order for us to learn, grow, evolve, move closer to Him, learn lessons, whatever it might be, right? And I think that specific thing for me really enhanced my deen, because it taught me to have faith in the world around me and to trust the things that happen for me and to me as well. When I was 19, for instance, so according to, Joe Dispenza's, whether or not he still teaches it this way, I can't speak on. This was quite a few years ago. But this is from my own experience and what I studied back in the day. And so this is what I'm saying, he might have changed his tune up a bit. I don't know. But this was a good 10 years ago. I heard this from him, his own words, himself reading his audiobook. Okay. But this whole idea of you attracting absolutely everything into your life, it becomes a little bit dangerous, because again, it means that we are responsible for absolutely everything. And if you're going through hardship and people around you are getting sick, maybe you're getting sick, people are dying, whatever it might be, one thing after the other, if you keep thinking you're the only one who's responsible for it, I mean, what will that do to your psyche? And on top of that, what will it do to your deen, and your level of understanding of Allah? Whereas, sorry, there's a little fly. Whereas if you have this understanding that Allah is putting it in your path for a reason, it's easier to surrender to it. You know, when I was 19 and I was diagnosed with cancer, if somebody said to me, you manifested the cancer, I never thought about cancer, not a day in my life. I never thought about getting sick, not a day in my life. I was 19, you know, like literally just turned 19, in fact. Like I'd only been 19 for a couple of months at that point, you know, so to sort of like argue that that was something that I'd manifested in my own life because of some thoughts or subconscious beliefs or whatever, is absolute rubbish. And if, you know, but for me to now know from the position that I'm in today, no, Allah put that in my path. And as I've said before, and I'll continue to say, inshallah, for the rest of my life, I will say the best thing that ever happened to me was getting cancer at such a young age, because it really forced me to put things into a perspective that was so unfamiliar to me and so very helpful to me because of that. So, you know, I can see now why Allah put that in my path. But if somebody had, like, when I was trying to sort of like get with the mainstream law of attraction to understand, like, why was that in my path to begin with, I would have felt so much resentful for myself and my underlying beliefs or whatever for making that happen to myself. Do you know what I mean? So it's enhanced my deen in that the even the negative things, or the things that we perceive to be negative that are happening in our lives, when those things are happening, we can kind of rest in that assuredness that it is from Allah, not from ourselves. You know, we're not harming ourselves. We're not harming ourselves. We're not doing anything to ourselves. Sometimes we are, of course, but like when something really feels out of our control and really is out of our control, that it's from Allah and there's a reason behind it. Another way that it enhanced my deen is because of the teachings of the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective. Now, there are all kinds of things, like the gratitude thinking, of course. Tawakkul is a big one. To surrender is a big one. There's a lot of very big Islamic components, theories, methods of prayer, of worship within law of attraction from an Islamic perspective that really strengthens your relationship and understanding of Allah and your role in this dunya. And that, when you're constantly practicing that, really enhances your deen, because you learn to have faith in ways that you might otherwise not consciously be aware of. So it might subconsciously lay there, but to consciously bring it into the forefront of your mind and rest in that assuredness is truly a magical thing, because and I'll get into it a little bit later on as well in this episode, inshallah, because it really removes a lot of anxiety and stress that you otherwise might kind of hold on to. It's actually, I'm going to go straight into this right now because I'm talking into it so fluently now, or like it's coming so naturally. You know, living with law of attraction from an Islamic perspective, it has drastically reduced my stress, anxiety, all like my worries, my fears, everything like that, because I am living in that assuredness of Allah. I'm living in the tawakkul of Allah. I am living in the gratitude towards Allah. I'm living in the understanding that yes, there are certain things I control, but at the end of the day, regardless of what happens around me, Allah is in control. And so all I can do is shift my perspective, my mindset, the energy that I'm putting out there, do things with the right intention, take action with the right intention, and then release and trust Allah, you know. And so I will always take steps. I will always work on my own stuff, my own mindset, my own beliefs, my own thoughts, my own inner monologues, all of these things, and ultimately take action with good intentions, and always with the intention of serving and pleasing Allah, inshallah. But ultimately, if it is not meant to come in the way that I imagine, or if it is not meant to come at all, but it's meant to come from somewhere else, that I will constantly surrender it back, meaning that I'm not putting any emphasis on the outcome. I'm allowing the outcome to come from Allah. Even when I have an outcome in mind, I trust and understand that Allah will always put it in my world the way that it is meant to come, and in the best way possible. So it really alleviates so much stress and anxiety from from my life in ways that I never actually even expected. And this is another way where I personally believe that mainstream law of attraction versus law of attraction from an Islamic perspective fully differ. Because imagine, and I've said this before, and you may have heard me say it before, imagine that you were fully in control of absolutely everything in your life. How stressful would that be? And mainstream law of attraction really, in a lot of ways, without actually saying it directly, maybe, actually, no, they some of them actually do, like the Joe Dispenza example that I just used, they're really saying everything in your life is your responsibility, like as in you have control to change absolutely everything. And in, theories far out there, we can agree to some extent, but ultimately Allah decides. And we have that, I'm not going to call it an escape, but we have that understanding and awareness as Muslims, and it does provide relief for us when we need it. And so we don't have to walk around stressing about, am I choosing the right thing? Or what if I'm not doing enough? What if I'm thinking negative thoughts? I can never be negative, whatever. And so you're basically cornering yourself to have this toxic positive life, where it's positivity at all costs, instead of understanding that it's okay also to have negative things happen from time to time, because there's a meaning behind it, there's a reason for it, and so you can allow it instead of constantly trying to resist it, and that is a wonderful thing that that the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective really offers, because again, we are not the ones in control. We are not the ones in charge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And the escape, the relief, the comfort, everything like that gives us, if we allow it to be, subhanallah, really a lifesaver for a lot of us. But we really also have to accept it and step into that, because a lot of people may understand it in theory. You may have heard me speak of this as well before. We know things in theory, we understand it in theory, but to live it, to be in that, to take action from that place can sometimes prove a little bit more difficult for some people, because it means letting go of responsibility. It means surrendering to the will of Allah instead of trying to micromanage Allah. It means not worrying about things that you are not in control of, even the things that you are in control of to whatever extent you are. But, the actual outcome of it, of how it's going to happen, how these people are going to react, whatever, that we can actually say, Allah knows better than I do, so I'm just going to do and trust. And whatever comes, even if it is something that I may initially deem to be negative, I still trust that it is there for a reason. And so I'm not going to stress over that. And I'm still not going to try my best to reject it or resist it or fight it. I'm just going to let it be, because I trust that Allah put it in my way. And then I'm going to try and deal with it from a place where I'm going to have a mindset that says to me, Allah put this in front of me. He allowed it to happen. This is the thing. He allowed it to happen. Why could he allow it to happen? Okay, maybe there's a reason then. So what could the reason be? Maybe it's because I have to go a different direction. Maybe it's because there's a lesson I still haven't learned. Maybe there's something I still haven't let go of in my past, in my traumas, in my mindset. Maybe I'm doing something that I'm kind of knowing. I'm like holding back on certain things. Maybe it's because there's some mindset work that I still need to like really delve into to give it that push where I can fully receive the blessing when it's time for it to come. Whatever it might be. Do you see, there could be so many things, and it's the wonderful thing. And I can't remember where I spoke about this, if it was a podcast episode or if it was in a newsletter or on TikTok, but speaking about, like entering into every chapter and everything, everything that happens in your life with this excitement, because Allah allowed it to happen. Allah put it in front of you. I'm sorry, there's this annoying frog in my throat. I apologize. I think I got it. I didn't. That's so frustrating. Okay, so that is one thing that the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective really can do. It can help you lead a more positive life as well, not because you're forcing yourself to be positive, but because the outcome when you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always to have hope. And it's not forced hope. It is real, genuine hope. It is hope that cannot be argued with, because you know that Allah will always have the solution. He always has the plan. He always knows what will happen. He always has the solution, right? So you don't have to constantly think about the solution. So there's a positivity around it. Oh, I'm going through some difficult times financially now. Oh, wow, that's hard in this dunya, but alhamdulillah, I'm still entering it, even though there's like my dunya aspect of thing where it's like, oh, it's hard now and whatever. Like, I'm not putting us or setting aside that or asking you to set aside any of that. Feel the emotions that you need to feel, but always with the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective, you come back to this whole mindset of it is there for a reason. Allah has facilitated it for a reason. He has allowed it to happen for a reason. And the more I resist it, the more I prolong it. But if I surrender to it and I learn what I need to learn, the easier it becomes. You know, it's kind of like that thing. For those of you who have children or nieces, nephews, whatever, like been around children who are young, you'll all know this thing where you tell your kid, go brush your teeth. You got to go to bed now. Go brush your teeth. And instead of brushing their teeth, they say, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. And they keep fighting it, but it doesn't make the teeth brushing go away. Do you see what I mean? I know it might be a really silly explanation or like a example, sorry. But it was the first one that came into my mind, because we do this as children a lot, and then we take it with us as adults, and we're not realizing we're doing the same thing towards Allah. Allah is saying, take this one, take this lesson, learn this lesson. And we're saying, no, I'd rather do it later. I don't want to do it now. I don't like doing this. It's uncomfortable for me, whatever it is. You know, we have... depending on the situation we're in, we might have all sorts of reasons and justifications why this is not a lesson that we're supposed to learn now, or we've already done it, and when I did it this morning, so I don't need to do it again this evening. And Allah's like, trust me, just do it. And we keep resisting, and it's prolonging it. It's not going away. It's prolonging the situation that you're in. So the more you think about it, like think of the child, the more you think about it, you could have brushed your teeth and gone to bed by now. You could have been going to bed already now. Yeah, but I don't want to brush my teeth. I just want to go to bed. Like, I don't know how many children want to go to bed. So again, like maybe that was a bad example. Maybe it's something like, they want to eat dessert, but they're refusing to eat the rest of their dinner plate or whatever. And so again, it's the whole thing like, eat the rest of your food. No, I just want the dessert. Well, if you ate the food, you'd be eating your dessert right now. And that's the same concept for us, right? That the more we keep resisting it, the more Allah is like, well, it's not going to go away. Like, I need you to finish this or eat this or learn this or pick this up in order for me to give you the dessert, in order for me to give you the blessing, to finish this part of your story. I'm not going to move it on until you've picked it up, And a lot of us don't realize how much we're resisting that when we're constantly saying, it's not fair. Why me? I've already done this before. Why is Allah bringing it to me again? The fact that mindset is there, that's why Allah has brought it to you again. The fact that you say, but why again or why me? That is why Allah has put it there, because there's still resistance, because there's an elevated ego. Why should I learn again? Because there's all sorts of things there that are going against, like the surrender and the tawakkul. Okay. So, so when you can do that, you can live a more positive life, because you stop resisting everything that comes in your way, and you start accepting it and saying, okay, and then what? And then what? Instead of saying no, thank you, and then you're blocking it. You're blocking the energy. You start stagnating in your own energy. No, nothing new can come in. Nothing can come out. It's the same stuff that's coming out, if anything's coming out. But it's not going to bring anything new in, because it's the same stuff you keep perpetually calling in with your energy, because you're refusing to learn. You're refusing to just pick it up and move on. Okay. By the way, I'm just going to plug myself in here really quickly, because I do understand that a lot of people struggle with this. So if you're listening to this and you're also struggling with this, I can help you move on from that. I can help you get through that resistance. So if you want to get through that resistance in your mind and you want to be like, but I don't know what I'm resisting, book a one-on-one with me. Let's clear that resistance with you to begin with, so you can move on and stop stagnating in your own stuck energy, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, quick plug over. Okay, so the last thing, well, there's so many other things, but the last thing that I want to share in this episode is that the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective has bettered my relationship with Allah. It has made it that much stronger, because everything now. And I don't know, this is going to sound absolutely ludicrous because, again, we know this in theory as Muslims, but in practice, sometimes we fall off that wagon there, okay? But everything in my life touches Allah in one way or another. Again, I know, stay with me, because I know in theory, we logically, as Muslims, might be like, yeah, no, we understand that, we know that. But again, do we live by it? Do we live by it? Do we take action by it? That's the difference. And listen, I'm not perfect. So like when I'm saying this, it's not because everything that I do with all of this is perfect. It's just that this is ways that my life have been improved. There's always room for more improvement. There is no such thing as perfection, right? Other than what Allah has created. And so I can always improve all of these things, and so can you. But my relationship with Allah, I have noticed, is going from strength to strength to strength to strength, regardless of what I am experiencing. Even when something happens to me that I, from my human perspective, from my human understanding and knowledge, would deem to be a negative thing, I'm still grateful for Allah. I will still seek out Allah with gratitude. I will still seek Him out with love and joy and excitement. I never think Allah is punishing me. I never think Allah is punishing me. And I know that might sound weird if you haven't had those thoughts, but I get that from a lot of you out there. So I know that this is also sort of like, why is Allah punishing me? Why is He putting me through difficult times? I never think this. This is not a thought that comes into my mind because I know Allah would never. He's not punishing me. He's loving me. He's loving me. And the more I go through, the more He loves me. And it's not because I want hardship in my life. I would like ease just as much as the next person. But if Allah was to take everything from me, I would still run towards Him. Because this is what the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective is teaching me. That is what Islam is teaching me. But the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective really doubles down on it for me. It doubles down on it to the point where everything I do teaches me that exact same lesson. I come back to that exact same thing. And that is the important part. That is the important part for me because it's a constant reminder. So it's not a reminder only when other people are saying it. It's not a reminder, when I just randomly think about it. It is a constant reminder. And that's what I love about the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective, is that it's a daily reminder throughout your day. It's not just one daily reminder. It's throughout your day because it is literally every single action that you take, everything that happens to you, every thought you have, every belief you have, everything's come back to the same thing of the reminder of Allah. Okay, and the love for Allah, and tawakkul, and surrender, and gratitude, and patience. Okay, so you see, everything comes back to that love for Allah and that appreciation for Allah and everything that He does for us. And so my relationship with Allah, subhanallah, I keep falling more and more and more in love with Him every single day. And I really noticed a huge difference in my deen from before I found law of attraction from an Islamic perspective to now, where I have this. And before I thought I felt really strong with Allah, and today, if I was strong before, I'm unbreakable now, right? And that's the way that it feels. And I only know that it grows and it keeps growing, subhanallah. So it's just like, wow, what is it going to look like in 5 years from now? What is it going to look like in 20 years from now? What is it going to look like, whenever? Subhanallah, it is wonderful. It is beautiful. And I can really, really put that down to the fact that I'm practicing the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective. It forces me into a daily mindset, a daily habit, daily routine, daily everything, where I keep coming back to Allah, whether it be through prayer, whether it be through dhikr, dua, fasting, but also other things like I created a mood board. The mood board is full of like, I'm going to show you, but I might make a video on this another time, actually, if you guys want to see it. But like I don't know if you can see it. You can see some of it, but like, okay, so the light and everything is reflecting off it, but I made a mood board, and so many of the things in my mood board is again coming back to Allah. Make dua until it's your reality. There are alhamdulillah, oh Allah, I ask you for beneficial knowledge, goodly provision, and acceptable deeds. There are so many parts where again it kind of it brings me back to Allah. Everything brings me back to Allah. So again, something like a mood board, my affirmations have changed because my affirmations, again, I'm not resting only upon myself. There is Allah. He is my anchor. He is the strength. I'm not the strong one. He's the strength that is in me. Because I have no strength of my own. The human strength is, you know, so, you know, everything that is good in me is from Allah. So the affirmations will reflect that. My mood vision boards will reflect that. My journaling, everything in my journal. Let me show you. Actually, I haven't plugged this in ages. Wow, I'm really plugging today. What's going on? My journal, 90 Days to Allah. I'm selling this one. It's linked in my stand store. Is, you know, I journal on quotes, ayats from the Quran. Because again, everything I do is a question of bringing it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not myself, not the universe, not the angels, not anything except Allah. And my relationship continuously grows because of that, because I understand that Allah is the everything in my world and in my practice, in my life. And that is in the rituals and routines of, you know, that we all know as Muslims, of salah, saum, dhikr, dua, but also through the other things that I might choose to do, whether it be mood boarding, vision boarding, journaling, affirmations, so on and so forth. Okay. I feel like I downloaded a lot of information here. I feel like there's a lot for you maybe to process in your own time, think about, do all the things that you need to do with this. I hope that it can inspire you to look at the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective, not as an add-on, but as a part of your religious devotion and worship to Allah, because that is ultimately what it is. The law is not, it's not a separate entity. It is very much, as I keep saying, everything within the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective is not from Joe Dispenza or from white man trying to steal from other. It is from the Quran, it is from the hadiths, it is from the Sunnah, and we are literally just taking it into an actionable perspective where we're living it rather than just knowing of it. And that really makes the difference here. Okay, my darling, I'm going to go make myself a big cup of tea. I'm a little bit cold right now and my throat is feeling a little wonky. So I'm going to stop here. I do hope you appreciated this episode. I hope there was something for you to take away from this episode that would inspire you in your journey. And one thing that I haven't done, I'm so sorry. Wow, with the plugs today, you can stop the episode now if you're not interested. But if you're subscribed to my newsletter, you'll know this already. But if you're not, I am doing things differently, inshallah, from 2025 with the business in the way that I'm offering my services, which means that I will no longer be offering pre-recorded online courses. Inshallah, I will be only doing live courses, which means if you have been looking at either my belief breakthrough or manifest your marriage courses, and you've been thinking about signing up for either one of them and getting those courses, now is your time. You've got about 2 weeks before the end of the year. Then I'll stop selling them. Stop selling them doesn't mean that they'll disappear. It means that if you've bought the course, you'll still have access to it, but I just won't actively be selling it. So if you are a kind of person who just wants the information for yourself and you go through it in your own time, you need to get it now. They're both of them on sale because I'm, as I said, stopping selling them. So go and check those 2 courses out. I'm leaving them up until the end of the year, but from the new year, inshallah, I will be doing things slightly differently with my courses and the information, like the way that I teach. So if you need to get your hand on one of those courses, do it now. I can't even remember the prices right now for them, but both of them essentially are discounted so that you can get the information, get both courses. I don't know, do whatever you want, of course, in that sense. But yeah, if you've been thinking about it, now's the time to strike. Both courses are on sale. They're really good. They've helped a lot of you people out there already. So if you've been thinking about it, now's the time. Okay, that is what I wanted to say. And then, of course, look forward to the next year, inshallah. I'm not going to stop for Christmas or anything like that. I'm going to continue to put out content and podcast episodes and all that good stuff, inshallah. And really exciting things coming for 2025, inshallah. I'm super excited about it. I absolutely cannot wait, and I hope that you will join me in the new endeavors of mine. And of course, as always, I love to hear from you. So if you've got feedback or you want to leave a review of this episode, please do that. If you've got feedback, reach out to me over at Manifesting Muslima on my Instagram account. I love hearing from you. I love connecting with you. So yeah, I'm going to jump off now. Thank you for joining me for another episode. I'll see you on Thursday's episode, inshallah. But until then, I'm forgetting my own sign off. I'm so sorry. Until the next episode, my darling friend, please don't forget to live in love.